Hi, my name's Roland Eva, and in this video series I'm going to show you how to turn strangers into customers on demand using a simple three-step system. A three-step system that I call Consistent Profits Pyramid. Now when you use this simple system, you can make money on demand without a sales team. You can relax with the security of knowing where your next sale is coming from, and you can say goodbye to the days of feast and famine income. Now, what is this system and how does it work? So this three-step system that I call Consistent Profits Pyramid is, it consists of 3 steps. So they are, number 1, find and clone your ideal customer. Number 2 is to earn their trust. And step 3 is to make them feel good about buying. Now, in the first video in this series, I showed you how to find and clone your ideal customer. So if you haven't seen that, go and watch it now. You can do that by clicking on the link above this video. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to earn the trust of your ideal customer and how to create a competitive advantage that no one can steal. So before you start thinking, well, that sounds pretty ambitious, like, is that really possible? Well, let me just explain that really this is all about storytelling. Yeah, storytelling is the magic fairy dust, as I call it, that makes everything in this process easier. It makes it easier for you to attract your ideal customer. It makes it easier for you to earn their trust, and it makes it easier for you to make them feel good about buying. So storytelling is, it's the foundation, it's the glue that holds everything together. Or as I like to call it, it's the magic fairy dust. Now, if you're thinking, I don't know how to tell a story, and how am I going to do this? That's okay. That's what this video is all about, how to tell an inspirational personal story. Now, here's something that you need to know. Storytelling is a skill, just like any other. It's a skill like bricklaying. It's a skill like learning to ride a bike or learning to drive a car. That means it's a skill that you can learn. All skills can be learned, yeah? Great storytellers are made, they are not born. Now, how do I know that? I know that because I did not get into this business because I was invited in. In fact, I was, for decades, I thought I could not write well. Why? Because I got 10% in an English exam. I had real-world proof that I did not know how to write well. And even though my grade at my next exam improved from 10% to 55%, yeah, quite a big improvement, but I certainly, wasn't one of the high flyers. I'd improved enough to become invisible. I'd improved enough to be in the middle. No one was gonna pick on me. That was a great and safe place to be. But once I, started this 7-year journey of how to turn strangers into customers on demand, what I realized was that, writing and storytelling lies at the heart of it. So I had a very simple choice to make. It was face my fears or quit. Now, like I said, for decades, I felt that I couldn't write well. So this was not a simple thing of, oh yeah, just face your fears. Just, look them in the face and say, I'm going to beat you. No, it wasn't as easy as that. Yeah? And it took me a long time before I believed that I could write well. In fact, the first time that I believed that I could write well was when I wrote a sales letter that made £50,000 in, I think it was 4 or 5 days. I was like, wow, maybe I'm actually good at this thing. Yeah? And then what happened next? A year later, I wrote another sales letter that pulled in £120,000 in 48 hours. Now, how did I do that? I did that by standing on the shoulders of other giants. I did that by learning from other people. Now, here's the good news. Like I said, storytelling is a skill just like any other, a skill that you can learn. Now, the other good news is that all of the great stories follow the same storytelling structure. Now, the author, Joseph Campbell, discovered this and wrote about this in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And what he did was he looked at religious stories, he looked at folk tales, and he looked at myths across the globe. And all of these religious stories, folktales, myths were from different time periods throughout history. And what he discovered was that regardless of time, regardless of, geographic location, all of these stories had the same storytelling structure, which he called the hero's journey. Now, Carl Jung, the psychologist and psychoanalyst, in his patients, he discovered that they all shared the same dreams. So he called this the collective unconscious. So, we are essentially all wired with this storytelling structure inside of us, a storytelling structure that helps us understand the world and interpret the world around us. And what that means is that when you tell a story using the hero's journey, at the end of it, your audience feels emotionally satisfied. They're like, yeah, it makes sense to them, it rings true. Now, here's the good news. I've simplified the hero's journey to make it easier to tell an inspirational personal story. And I've simplified it down to just 5 steps. So let's dive in to step 1. Well, step 1 is the setting. Step 2 is character. 3 is struggles. 4 is solution. And 5 is outcome. So what do they mean and how can you use them? So let's look at step 1. So step 1 is the setting. So every story takes place in a specific place at a specific time. So your job as the storyteller is to transport the reader so that they are sitting or standing next to you, so that they can see what you saw and feel how you felt. Now, you might be thinking that's a long and complex process to do that. Well, here's my favorite storytelling introduction from a Paul Simon song. And it says, I was having a discussion in a taxi heading downtown. Me and a friend of mine had a little bit of a breakdown. So in just 2 sentences, he set the scene and moved the story on. So what's the picture that I have in my mind? So when he says, I was having a discussion in a taxi heading downtown. So I'm immediately thinking he's in a yellow cab driving into New York. Why do I think that? Because of the word downtown. Also, because I know that Paul Simon is from New York, and he writes about that in his songs. So I'm assuming he's heading into New York. Why do I think it's a yellow cab? Because all New York cabs are yellow, right? That's just the picture that I have. So, are they driving during the day? Are they driving at night? Are they stuck in traffic? I don't know, and I don't care. Why? Because I want to know what him and his friend are arguing about. So he set the scene and moved the story forward. So, how else can you set the scene? How do I set the scene when I talk about my stories? Well, I talk about Monday the 15th of September 2008. It's a very specific date, yeah? It's a very specific date that we will all remember, because that's the day when Lehman Brothers went bust. That's the day when financial markets around the world went into free fall. Everybody is going to remember that day. Everybody's going to remember where they were when they heard that. Yeah, I certainly remember where I was when I heard it, and I immediately felt the change that was coming. Yeah, so get clear on where you were when you knew that you had to make a change in your life, because that's where your story starts, and that's how you can place your reader or your viewer there with you. So step 2 is character. Now, every story has at least one character in it, and if there's only one character, then that is the hero of the story. Now, the audience only cares about the hero if the hero wants something badly. So, the question the audience has is, who is the hero, what does he want, and what is stopping him from getting it? Once they understand that, they're like, okay, great, I'm ready to find out how the hero overcomes that obstacle. So, the biggest movies have this, yeah? So let's look at the highest grossing movie of all time, Avatar. So Avatar sets this up very, very quickly. But of course, you might be thinking, well, what relationship, or how is the audience just like Jake, the hero, in Avatar? Because they're not Marine, they haven't been to Pandora, they're not trying to save the world. Well, to me, Avatar is really about acceptance. Yeah? Jake is thrown out of the world that he knows. He's a cripple and he can't be a Marine. So he's thrown out of the world that he knows. He then tries to make it as a scientist. He then tries to make it as one of the Na'vi people. And each time he's trying to earn the respect of the group. He's trying to gain their acceptance. So we're all trying to gain acceptance in our own lives, whether that's in a new job, whether that's in a networking meeting, whether it's in a community online. We're always trying to gain acceptance. So if you think about the hero of your story and your audience, what does the hero want? And how does that make the hero just like your audience? Now, chances are it's whatever the hero wants and whatever the struggles he's having, your audience is going through those same struggles too. So that brings us nicely onto step 3 in this process, which is struggle. Now, struggle is the engine of the story. This is what, hooks people for a movie. This is what hooks people for the length of a novel. Yeah, this is what keeps people engaged, excited, turning the page. So we all hate living through struggles in our own life. Problems come along, oh man, how am I going to deal with this? Yeah, we hate doing it, but we love hearing about how other people do it. Yeah, hence, it's one thing to watch a movie that's a fictional story. It's another thing to watch a story that's based on real life, or one that is real life. Yeah, even more so the better, because it's like, oh, well, they're going through the same struggles that I am, but they found this amazing solution. I want to know how they did it. Yeah, I want to know what that solution is. Yeah, that's how you pull the reader into your story. The other thing about sharing your struggles and having the courage to share your struggles is most people don't want to do that. Most people want to say, I got an idea, and then the process of going from here to here was just a series of wins. Victory, 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 look how great I am. Well, guess what? We all know that's not true. We all know that life isn't like that. The world is not that easy. We go back to the collective unconscious, as Jung talks about it, that story does not ring true for us. Whereas when you say, I got an idea, I tested it, and then, real world feedback gave me a concussion, and here's what happened when I got back up again, now you're talking. Now there's that grit. Here's what happened when I got back up again. Yeah? What does your audience want to know? Why you got back up. Yeah? Hey, you got back up again and you got knocked down again. What made you keep getting up again? Why didn't you quit? Yeah? Was it because you knew that where you were going was so important? Was it because you were too far along your journey? You'd reached the point of no return. What was it that made you not quit? Yeah? Because if your audience can see, hey, this is just an ordinary guy, just like me, and the only difference is that he didn't quit. What does that do? It inspires them to keep going on their journey. It reveals your values in a very, very emotional way. What do they go away knowing? They go away knowing, if nothing else, you don't quit. You don't stop until you get the result that you want. Yeah? But that also builds the need for your solution, because guess what? If it took you 10 years of struggle and, I don't know, £50,000 of your own money to create this solution, they're going to want to know that. They're going to want to know how they can skip 10 years of struggle. They're going to want to know how they can save £50,000 of their own money. So that brings us nicely onto step 4, which is the solution. So what is the solution that you're selling? So you don't need to describe this in any great detail. It could be as simple as, I wrote a book. Great, they understand, yeah? Or, I've created an online program. Simple. Or, I offer this as a consulting service. Everybody immediately gets it. Now, that's all they need to do. They need to immediately know what they're buying. Why? Because they don't care about much else other than what your solution will do for them. So again, this is where your storytelling ability comes into play, because what you're really saying is, what does the hero's life look like once the obstacle has been removed? So what did you want? If you wanted, what has this solution given you in your life? Hey, if it's given you more time and money freedom, great. What have you done with that money? Hey, I've traveled the world with my family. Let me show you where I've been. Wow, that's a powerful way of, you don't even need to say very much. You can just show some pictures to say, this is what this has done for me. This is what this can do for you too. Yeah? Whether it's given you just, you've fallen in love with your business again, because you're no longer going, where's my next sale coming from? You're no longer suffering through that feast and famine income. Yeah? Or, maybe you found the love of your life and you're now married and you've got kids. Whatever it is, yeah? You've got to be able to describe in ways that your ideal customer can see what your solution will do for them. Because once they can see it, then they're like, well, great, how do I get it? How much does it cost? Yeah? Which sets up the sale. So we don't need to talk about the sale at this point. We're going to talk about that in the next video. Today's video is all about storytelling and how you can use your inspirational personal story to earn the trust of your ideal customer. Now, like I said to you, this also creates a competitive advantage that no one can steal because no one has your story. Yeah? Now, you might be thinking, well, is this really a competitive advantage? Yes, absolutely. One more powerful than you realize. Why is that? Because we don't really buy products and services. What we buy is a set of values. And there's no greater way to reveal the values of you and your company than to tell an inspirational personal story. We also buy a result. And there's no better way to prove that an amazing result is possible than by telling an inspirational personal story. So the more you can tell your inspirational personal stories, the better you can attract your ideal customer. The more you will have a competitive advantage that no one can steal. Now, if you're thinking, Roland, that's all great. I get or I understand how to use this system, but I don't have an inspirational personal story. Then let me tell you, I know that's not true. I know you've got an inspirational personal story that's just waiting to burst out of you. How do I know that? Because everybody's got an inspirational personal story. Not only that, the fact that you're watching this video tells me that you're on the path less traveled. And if you're on the path less traveled, then there's an inspirational personal story there. Now, when I work with consulting clients, the first thing I do is pull their story out of them. And how do I do that? I interview them. And we sit and we chat and and hey, maybe I ask, can you tell me a little bit more about this, or can you tell me a little bit more about that? And after an hour or so, I can tell that they're beginning to think this is a waste of my time. And then I'll read back to them essentially their story, but in a condensed version. And they're like, oh man, that sounds really impressive. And of course, I'm not telling them anything they don't already know. I'm not telling them anything new. This is their life. But they don't see it as impressive because they just got on with it. They had a challenge, they worked their way through it. It was gritty, it was hard work, and they got a result. And then they got another challenge, and they had to solve that problem. And it was gritty and it was hard work, and they went from problem to find the solution, and eventually they got to the happy ending. So they know what the end of the rainbow looks like, but they don't realize that, that journey in between is actually an amazing journey. They don't realize how inspirational that can be to other people. Hey, guess what? It's inspirational to themselves when I read it back to them. So I know that you've got a story that's just waiting to be told. So here's where your story starts. Your story starts when something outside of your control forced you to make a change. So where does my story start? My story starts on Monday the 15th of September 2008 when, something changed in the market. And so something outside of my control changed, and the result of that was the phone stopped ringing. So I was forced to make a change, yeah? As a result of that, my business went bust. That forced me to make another change, which was to learn how to turn strangers into customers on demand. So that's where the story starts. So where does your story start? Think about the moment when you were caught in the rain without an umbrella, because that's where your story starts. And guess what? Chances are it's a painful moment. So get clear on where you were, how you felt, and share that with your reader, share that with your audience, because the more that you can share that with them, the more they can relate to you, the more they will then listen to, they'll go on that journey with you of how you overcame the challenges, and then ultimately how you found the solution that you're now able to share and sell with them. So I hope you can now see how you can tell your inspirational personal story, and also how you can find your inspirational personal story. So that's step 2 of this process, which is to earn the trust of your ideal customer. And as I say, when you do this process well, you create a competitive advantage that no one can steal. Now, in the final video in this video series, I'm going to share with you step 3, which is how to make them feel good about buying. In other words, how do you make the cash register ring? Yeah? Because up until now is like work and grind. But of course, what we want to do is turn strangers into customers on demand so that we can grow our businesses, yeah? So that we can build a business that gives us the income and lifestyle that we want. So step 3 is how you do that. So in the next video, I'm going to share with you how to create an irresistible offer. So this is a process that I'm going to walk you through so that you can create your own irresistible offer. And this is the tool that you use to make your ideal customer feel good about buying. So I'm going to share that with you in a couple of days. Until then, carpe diem.